I had a classmate in IIT who was a brilliant director and actor. He spent most of his time in IIT doing dramatics and getting awards for it. Do you know what he is doing now?
Probably a
He
accomplished.
is a software engineer. So I asked him, why didn't he pursue his passion? Clearly, he was passionate about dramatics. And he said, follow your passion is bullshit advice. Usually, what happens when you follow your passion is that you don't follow your money, you become a starving artist, you become disillusioned with art, and then you end up with neither art nor money.
Okay, I agree partly about what you've said, not the starving artist part, but we've always been told as kids to follow your passion, follow your dreams, do something unique in the world.
So that's what we are going to analyze in this episode. Okay. But follow your passion isn't something we've always been told. Okay. Just look at this graph from Google.
Okay.
It clearly shows that took off in mid 1990s. Okay.
Yeah.
Before that, it wasn't much of a thing. Okay.
Yeah, what happened in the mid 1990s for this graph to take off? Like literally.
All countries in the world got richer, right? Before that, parents really didn't say follow your passion. Okay.
Yeah.
They said try not to starve, get a job that gives you enough money that you can pay for food and a house, right?
Yeah.
4 roti, 1 langoti, baki sab bakwas hai, right? So,
true.
Basically, follow your passion is incredibly bad advice.
Okay. Why would you say it is bad advice?
I have a bunch of reasons for that. Okay. Let's start with reason number 1. Okay. So, for example, look at this lovely quote. Pick the field you love, study hard, and you will never work a day in your life.
True.
Yeah, because nobody is hiring in that field. Okay.
Also true.
So, passion really doesn't pay your bills. Okay.
But then the world has enough software engineers, the world has enough doctors and lawyers.
Well, if you paid any attention during our episode on supply and demand, you would know that the fact that their salaries are high means that the demand for them is high. The world does in fact need more of them. Okay.
True. And there is a huge supply of podcasters and content creators right now. So the demand
that is basically the software engineers and the doctors realizing that they're not so passionate about this and they try to follow their passion. They run a podcast for 6 months and then they go back to making money.
So they are still following their passion.
Well, that is the problem, right? Many times the reason they give up after 6 months of podcasting is because passion can be momentary. It is fleeting. That's reason number 2 for not following your passion. It's difficult to sustain it for a long time.
Yeah, probably because they're curious about that passion of theirs. They're probably trying to explore that passion of theirs.
That's a great thing. Curiosity is a great thing. Exploration is a great thing. But let's not mistake that for a follow your passion thing, which is going to drive all your decisions for the next 20 years, right?
But here's the thing. If they stick with that curiosity for a certain period of time and they go through the dip, they can still come out of the dip at the other end of the dip. We've done an episode on the dip. They can come out of the dip with a passion for that thing.
Well, yes. Okay. So then we come to reason number 3.
Okay.
Which is that just because they think they have a passion for something doesn't mean that they have competence for it. They might not be any good at it, right? I know any number of people who are very passionate about cricket, but they're never going to make a career in cricket. Okay.
Football in my case, but he is right. I knew very early on that I had a passion for football, but I did not have the chops for it because competence also requires some amount of passion for you to put into that particular exercise.
Well, yeah. So, before we start telling everyone follow your passion, we should check for competence, right?
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. We should check for competence.
That brings us to reason number 4. Okay. Follow your passion is bad advice because it gives people the impression that things should be easy. If it is like hard work and if you feel bored, then you are doing something that you are not passionate about, right?
Okay.
But that's bullshit in most cases, right? Even if you're passionate about something, if you want to make a long-term career in it, it is going to be hard work, right? We have done multiple episodes on this. There is effort shock where we pointed out that even Sachin Tendulkar, who probably has a God-given talent for cricket and who has probably the most passion on cricket of anyone in the world.
True.
his coach has pointed out that the reason he's successful is because he was the hardest working student.
Right? Yep, and I have no objections to this. I completely agree that passion only counts towards probably the first step. You still need to put in a lot of hard work to reach those heights that we are talking about, Sachin Tendulkar level heights, or whatever is your God in whatever sport or passion you choose.
Correct.
I have no objections to this. I agree with this completely.
And even if you do have a passion, to continuously make yourself better, you do need deliberate practice.
Okay? Yes. We've done an episode on deliberate practice. We'll line it up and put links in the description. So go check that out.
Another problem with follow your passion is that not everyone has a passion. This is so common in India, where kids have to decide their entire future after 12th standard, right? And the schools are such that you haven't just been given much time to discover what you are really good at, what you are passionate about.
That is true, and that is something I've been thinking for a long time, that we force our kids to decide what they are passionate about even before they know what they can be passionate about. So yeah, I agree with this.
And a related problem there. You might be passionate about something, but then once you enter into that field, you realize that you had no idea what that field involves, and that you were passionate about just the idea of that field, not the reality, right?
Oh, okay.
Reality can disillusion you often.
Yeah.
I know a student who thought she was passionate about chemistry, but luckily for her, she took a gap year after 12th standard.
Okay.
And she went to a college and worked with a PhD student in chemistry. After doing that for a little while, she realized, oh, this is what chemistry is. I am not interested in this at all. Right?
Okay.
So this can happen to a lot of people.
Yeah, but in her case, could it just have been effort shock? As in, she didn't know the effort that was required to have a career in chemistry.
Well, and sometimes it is effort shock, but many times it is not. It is just a misunderstanding of what that field involves, right? Somebody is passionate about running a restaurant, okay? Because they think that running a restaurant means coming up with a very interesting menu and being able to cook those things so that they taste very good, right? But in reality, running a restaurant involves a lot of marketing and HR and dealing with irritated customers and, very, very little menu and cooking, okay? So, if you want to follow your passion, restaurant business is not for you, right?
Yeah, I believe there is a series called The Bear, which basically explores some part of this, the passion part of this, and also the effort part of this. But how do you differentiate between what is real passion and what isn't?
So this is a serious question for parents of 12th standard kids, right?
Yeah.
That there are kids who are like, I am passionate about doing a band. And then they have to decide whether to allow the kid to follow that passion or force them to go to engineering, right?
Yeah.
So Doc Bhushan on Twitter has an excellent suggestion for this, right?
Okay.
First, ask yourself, is the kid willing to spend time on this, right?
Okay.
If they're just passionate but they're not putting in the work, then no.
Then
right?
it's,
Second, are they willing to give up something else for it, right? You can do this for 2 hours, but then that means you cannot do this, right?
Good point.
If they're willing to give up something serious, then they are really passionate about it, right?
Good point.
Third is that don't give them money or equipment or something like that to follow the passion until they have earned it with hard work or some achievements or something like that, right? There should be a jugalbandi between the money and equipment and the hard work and achievements, right?
Which will also give them a sense of what it is like to earn in that passion.
Yeah. Another good way is talking to experienced seniors and internships, but maybe some of that has to happen after some effort has been put in.
Correct.
Right?
After a threshold has been reached where it is very clear that, okay, this passion has led to hard work, and that hard work has brought you to a point where you need a coach, a mentor for deliberate practice.
Correct. Exactly.
Very interesting. But at the same time, also a little disheartening, because as someone in the creative industry myself, I genuinely think that passion is necessary for creativity, for insight, for intuition, to create good pieces of art, to create good artworks. I mean, imagine someone like a George R.R. Martin or a J.R.R. Tolkien not having passion. They wouldn't have been able to write all of those magnum opuses that they've written.
Well, the important thing is that before you follow your passion, you should have a safety net. George R.R. Martin was a teacher. J.R.R. Tolkien was a professor at Oxford, right?
Yeah.
That is why they could follow their passion. Without a safety net, if you discover that follow your passion is wrong advice for you because of the earlier reasons I gave you, then you are in trouble. But if you have a safety net, then you have freedom to explore and experiment.
Now, what you said about students having to choose their careers early makes sense, because a lot of students are in a hurry to look for their passion without realizing that they haven't built enough of a safety net. In some students' cases, the parents become a safety net, but in a lot of students' cases, there might not be a safety net.
Absolutely. And Doc Bushan's advice continues saying that, just first do your engineering degree or whatever, some degree that makes it easy to get a job. And then after that, you have time to follow your passion for a little bit at least.
Yeah,
right?
Anil Kumble was also an engineer before he became a cricketer.
Right.
So that applies there as well.
I also give advice, right? If your parents are rich, you already have a safety net, then go for liberal arts, follow your passion, do all of those things. We do need more passionate people out there.
Yeah, because without passion, you would also not make the connections needed for succeeding in that industry. For example, we spoke about this in the episode on luck, on how to increase your surface area for luck. And one of those methods required you to be passionate about something so that you would then become lucky in that field, right?
But the thing to really understand, the crux of this episode is that passion is a result of competence and mastery, not the other way around.
So what you're saying is we need to first find things that we are competent at and then keep taking efforts in those things, and then the mastery and passion will develop in that.
Well, what I'm really saying is that you should follow your passion, but do it in the right way.
There is a right way.
Well, there is a bunch of ways that famous people have suggested. Let me go through some of them and see if they make sense to you, right?
Please.
Mark Cuban says follow your effort, right?
Okay.
So the point being that unless you're able to put effort into something, like we talked about, you are not going to get really good about it and you will not be passionate about it. Right?
True.
So follow the things that you seem to be putting effort in. Second is follow your self-expression.
Meaning?
Right? Meaning that if you're experimenting with various things, you will notice that some things you are naturally good at, right? So go after that. After a while, you might either hit a wall and then you don't feel like putting in the effort, in which case you stop. But if you can continue to put effort into that and you are good at it, then, that is your swadharma.
Swadharma, okay, interesting.
You can combine this with follow your purpose.
Purpose, not passion, because passion is different from purpose, right?
Yeah, the idea being that passion is what you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Purpose is what you should do, right?
Correct.
The idea being that the only way to be truly satisfied is that if you believe you're doing good work, great work, right?
Right.
Steve Jobs has said that the important point is not just to follow your passion, but something larger than yourself. This is also the secret to happiness.
True, I agree.
One very interesting thing I heard someone say is follow your blisters. Follow your itch, right? So something that keeps irritating you, you keep getting drawn to it, right? So it indicates that this is something that if you succeed at doing that, it'll make you very happy, right?
Yeah.
So you should add that as a layer to your follow your X. Right?
As in, if something is causing blisters, if something is so problematic that you find yourself getting blisters while doing it, but you still do it, it means that there is a purpose to it, there's a passion to it. So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, there's a link to an article about follow your blisters. Take a look at that. But also follow your commitment, right?
Okay.
So commit to something and then you will, after a little while, become passionate about it if you stick with it, right? This is my opinion about arranged marriages also.
What? Explain.
The idea is that if you commit to something and to making it work, over time, you will find more and more reasons to get engaged with it, more and more reasons to like it. If you pay attention to our episode on believing is seeing and Bayesian updating, you will see how that works, how that reinforces and ultimately becomes passion.
This is a very interesting take on the entire arranged marriage versus love marriage debate that I hadn't thought of, but it makes sense when you think about it, because you're putting work in an arranged marriage. That work kind of, in a very positive interpretation of the sunk cost fallacy, makes you passionate about the marriage itself, about your partner in the marriage.
So that is an interesting point, right? And I can generalize that. That purpose, passion is not something you find.
Okay.
It is something you build, right? There is a wrong Hollywood version of your purpose or your passion, right? Like, oh, the two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. Like Neo waking up one day to realize, oh, this is what he was made for, right? But reality is not like that. Reality is that you build your passion through hard work, through commitment, through effort.
And then you find your purpose. I agree.
A different way to put it is that you should design your life. Okay.
Design your life.
Yeah. So this idea is from Stanford Design School. There is a website, there is a book by Bill Burnett, Dave Evans. What they say is, to put it more succinctly, passion is the result of good life design, not the cause.
Oh, that's a very interesting way to look at things. Because when you actually find your passion, you realize that it wasn't there all along. You've built up towards it. In a sense, this reminds me of this Japanese concept called ikigai.
If you look back at this episode, you might be a little confused because we started saying follow your passion is bad advice. And then we continued it by saying follow your X, follow your Y, where the X and Y just sounded like other words for passion, right?
Kind of.
But that is not really true. Okay. They are different. And I think ikigai brings it all together nicely, right?
It does.
Ikigai says that you should be doing something which is a combination of do what you love.
Correct.
Do what you're good at, so there is competence.
Correct.
Do what you can be paid for, so the world actually wants that.
Correct.
And do what the world needs. So that is purpose.
A higher purpose, a mission, something to aim to, something that will improve the world.
Right. So when somebody says follow your passion, don't just pick what happens to be at the top of your mind right now as your passion, but instead there is a lot of experimentation, a lot of hard work at the 4 circles of the ikigai, where you do that experimentation to figure out, okay, this is the set of things I love, this is the other set of things I'm good at, this is the third set of things that people are willing to pay for. There is scope, as any 12 standard parent will tell you, and this is what the world needs, and then find the subset.
Correct.
And that will become your passion if you stick with it and work hard.
In fact, I recommend this as an exercise to many people I meet who are searching for their passion. I basically tell them to take the 4 headings of these 4 circles as 4 columns, fill in those 4 columns and find the common thread that runs through it. That common thread becomes your ikigai. And once you find your ikigai, you'll find yourself a lot happier. In fact, if you have found your ikigai, comment and let us know what that is and how you found it. We'd be very interested to know. But yeah, it seems like we started off by saying follow your passion is bad advice, but that's because it's only half the advice.
Correct.
The other half is that there is a right way to follow your passion.
And it involves a lot of experimentation and hard work, and it will come a little later.
It will come if you stick with it. Shrikant, Naveen, sticking with FutureIQ.